Good morning, guys. Thanks for sticking around. I think I know everybody here, but for purposes of, we're going to record this too, and it'll be on the website. So I'm Blythe Jones, and as of January 1, I am the chair of the administrative board. So I get to sit here and talk. We're here to talk about the future, which is sort of the purpose of this whole meeting. As Pastor Keith said, we'll get you out of here quickly. Some of us will stick around if you still have questions. As you guys know, Pastor Keith is retiring at the end of June. And earlier this fall, when he was sort of mulling over what he was going to do in his decision, he created a committee that we creatively named the Long Range Planning Committee. And this committee looked at sort of the future of the congregation, where we were and where we wanted to be. Pastor Keith knew that with his retirement, who was our next pastor was going to be obviously critically important. And the committee was charged with determining what our options were going forward and how to keep us dynamic, thriving, and growing. And then we started looking at, if you want to go to the next slide, Kyle. Unfortunately, the attendance statistics, when you look at them for the past 10 years, are very telling. In 10 years, our numbers have essentially halved. And all this has happened when we've spent so much energy and effort trying to do exactly the opposite of that. I think we've had a ton of positive energy, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. You know, our missional focus is off the charts. We started a new daycare, held multiple community-wide events. Thanks to Pastor Keith and Jamie Kapke, our wedding ministry is booming again. But as you can tell, our numbers are still declining. So the committee came up with kind of what they saw as our 4 options for the future. The first is just to continue what we're doing, hope it starts to work, hope we can continue to be assigned quality full-time pastors. You know, you get to the point where your average attendance drops, you may not get a full-time pastor. That's one option. The second one was link with an existing church in our area, such as Central, St. James, or Keystone. That would probably be, you know, one pastor for 2 churches, probably closing one of those buildings, and probably a fairly long process to figure out what that looked like. The third one was close down entirely and sell the church. We won't even talk about that anymore. Not an option. Number 4 was merge with an existing larger church outside of our area. So last month, the administrative board met with our district superintendent, which is what always happens when you're going to have a pastoral change coming up. We kind of talked to him about our options. He did say he was supportive of a merger if you had the right host church, but that if we wanted to do something like that, we needed to make our decision by mid-February, because that's when they start making their final decisions on pastoral placement. So I'll turn it over to Keith and have him kind of talk about where we went from there.
One of the things that I was thinking about is, you know, how do we connect or kind of change our culture to being more of a growing, you know, after 10 years of decline, you kind of get it just kind of gets into being a part of you. And you probably don't even see it as much as you think about it over these 10 years. But how can we connect with a culture or be with another church that has actually experienced the opposite? Some growing church, and what are they doing? What is different that they do that we might be able to learn from so that we can reverse this decline? And so I happen to know of Pastor Mark Sheets. He was the associate pastor with me for a year when I was at Concord Trinity, the church before I came here in St. Louis. And in 2011, he was appointed over here to the Good Shepherd United Methodist Church, which is in the North Metro area. And their church has grown. They've gone from about 500 to 800 in this 7-8 years that he has been there. So I had a conversation with him, and I asked him, would he be willing to be a consultant to Country Club Church and kind of help us work with the board, work with whatever pastor comes here, kind of be a mentor of the next pastor, and help us try to maybe change that culture into a growing congregation. And he agreed to do that. And then he came and spoke to our long-range planning team, and we talked with him and asked him questions about, what he had done and what he might be able to do for us. And in the midst of that, we learned that, part of what he did there was he started some campus churches. These were some churches also in the Metro North area that were in serious decline. They were even smaller than what we are here at Country Club. And he was, as a result, they becoming a campus with Good Shepherd, he was able to personally handpick the pastor who would go and serve that church. And then that pastor worked very closely with him. They meet on a weekly basis, and they also share staff. All of their children's ministry staff, their youth ministry staff, their adult ministry staff that works on small groups. All of those staff members were able to work with this campus church as well. And these churches went from much smaller than what we are. Some of them were down to, I believe, 20 or less people, and each of those have grown to be 100 or more people in those campus churches. And so in the midst of that conversation, we kind of started wondering what it would be like if we became a campus of Good Shepherd Church. And so that became another option for us to kind of think about. We talked to Reverend Sheets, and he said he would be willing to talk to us about that. No decisions have been made, but that is another one of those options on these list of options, is to become a campus church of Good Shepherd. If you want to go and look them up on the website, you can learn about who they are and what they do. They do a lot of mission work as well. They're very strong in a lot of different ways, and so we have added that as an option. Okay.
Great, thank you. So in connection with...
Turn it off.
Yeah.
I think the battery went dead. Can you speak loud?
I'll talk loud. So in connection with all of these meetings we've been having, long-range planning, admin boards, we've talked about it a lot. So we just this morning wanted you to hear from some people that are thinking about all these different options and talking about it. And so Tara Snyder, we really wanted you to hear from her, and she couldn't be here today. So she actually was willing to, she sent in a video for us, kind of her thoughts, just in general about long-range planning and what can happen. And so if you guys would take a minute and watch Tara's thoughts, and then we're going to hear from Terry Kilroy and Ted Kapke kind of with their thoughts on things as well.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully we have volume.
Ed, you're up here.
We saved you a spot.
Oh, no. Get anybody read lips? It's not okay. Well, why don't you try to get that fixed, and we'll hear from
I'm these. Go try this other mic.
Yeah, she's going to try that one if you want to turn it on.
That one's on. He wants to go. He wants to be lucky.
Terry, you want to start, or do you want me to? I don't know what the intro you've given them is. How?
Just sharing some of your thoughts on the different options that we've been talking about
Okay.
and where you feel
Perfect.
like you are.
All right. We've had
If you'll
declining-
stand up, please. They want
Yeah,
you to stand
we've
up.
had, and I don't probably need this.
Yeah, you have to for the
Do
for
I need
the-
it? Okay.
for the live feed and for the recording.
For the recording, got it. We've had declining attendance and membership for a number of years. We've done a number of things to address those. And it seems like for the past 10 years probably, every few years we have what do we need to do to reinvent ourselves? And one of the things that we keep running into is we are not pastors who lead a church to reinvent itself. We are people who attend the church and don't really have the knowledge or skills that are needed to basically thrive in the current church environment. Thus, we were faced with two options. As we saw it, we could do nothing and continue as we're going and continue to see declining membership, or we could get a new pastor when Keith retires and hope that that pastor is the person who is trained to change things drastically in order to reverse the trends that we're seeing, or we could affiliate with a larger church that is looking for a campus situation. And I looked at all three options that we have, and I don't think we have much choice but to affiliate with a larger church. And I came to that choice a few different ways. The first way was, if you look at it, the churches, like most organizations, are consolidating. And what that means is basically the strong churches are going to survive and the weaker churches are not. And the larger organization is aware of that and is going to let the weaker churches disappear and fail. And that's a sad thing. And I think we all love this church, this building, this place where we worship, and we want it to continue. And the best way for it to continue is to affiliate with one of the larger churches that will provide us the support. And the specific support that we need, oddly enough, is not financial support so much as it is basically hands and feet and people. I think all of us have been tapped to run more than one role in this church, and it becomes difficult to keep giving back when there's a limited and shrinking pool of people who are tapped to do basically God's work through our church. And so I think that affiliating with a larger church is going to be our best option. I gave strong consideration to whether or not we could just have a new pastor assigned to us. And I think we have two issues with that as well. Is number one, the pastors who are coming out of seminary, who are getting jobs, are wanting to be with the big churches because they see the exact same trend. They want to work for people like Adam Hamilton or people like Mark Sheets, where they'll get trained and they'll have the ability to be put into a position where they're going to succeed, not a position where they're going to fail. So I think, number one, the people who have talent who are coming out of the seminary are going to the bigger campus-like congregations. And number two, those that are not being equipped with the support that they need to make the types of changes that we need to see in order to change this congregation so that we grow our membership. I don't want I've told Jamie more than once, the last thing I want is to affiliate with a big church. And I certainly didn't want to become Core Brookside or something of that nature. And my thought on that has changed. It's evolved. I don't think we're going to, I mean, we're not really looking at CORE, and CORE wouldn't even really be looking at us. They're looking really for financially distressed churches that they can simply take over. This would be, at least as we're hearing, a little more autonomous. CORE is Church of the Resurrection, for those of you who don't know what CORE is. And Good Shepherd seems to be looking for the ability to give us more autonomy. And that's what's led, I think, Jamie and I to believe that this may be the best option for our church moving forward, and not one that we came to easily. But in many respects, I don't think we're running out of options, and we don't have a whole lot of time to say, let's turn it around this year, let's change something, because everything we've tried hasn't worked. And Jamie says, time to stop talking. So I'll let somebody else have the mic.
Okay, I think he has the video. I think he has the video ready. Okay, go ahead, Kyle.
Good afternoon, church family. Sorry I can't be there with you today. I have other commitments, but I wanted to send a quick video to just let you guys know my thoughts on this topic. Basically, since August, I have been looking at other churches because I don't feel like my spiritual needs and those needs of my family are getting met by our current church. I love all the people at Country Club, but it's not enough anymore for me just to keep coming to church just because I like the people. I need to be spiritually filled. I want a good kids program for my children. I think it's great that we have kids that come every Sunday and we have teachers that come every Sunday, but it's just the lack of programming. There's nothing really extra for them to do. They don't have a way to really connect with each other outside of church unless I just reach out to the other parents and say, let's all get together. I would like a bigger small group for myself, more opportunities for just ways to connect with people that are in the same stage of life as I am, that are also Christians and want to integrate that aspect into their lives. So I've been trying out different churches recently, pretty much just going around my neighborhood and venturing out from there. I've tried all different denominations, from Methodist to Anglican to Presbyterian to Lutheran. That doesn't matter to me as much as just the feeling and the connection I get when I go to these services. I've tried traditional, I've tried contemporary. I feel most comfortable at a traditional church because that's what I'm used to, but I have to say I get the most out of the contemporary services. I don't mind a band, I don't mind the praise music or the lack of what I call sort of the pomp and circumstance of this is when you stand up, this is when you go up to the front to get communion, or those aspects. I like the fact that I feel like my kids are more comfortable in a contemporary service. And so I would just really like to see our church move forward in exploring what other options there are. I understand that we're going to have a new pastor regardless of which direction we choose, but I worry that just a new pastor isn't enough to change the trajectory of where we're going. I feel like we've been trying to update and change our church every couple years for as long as we've been members. And I think we've been here 14 years. And we try our best, but we're not accomplishing the goals that we have set for ourselves. So I would love to see us merge with another church that has done this before. They've done it multiple times with other smaller churches, and at least try that path. I would hope that down the road, that if we do go with Good Shepherd and we have a contemporary service, that maybe then once we get our numbers high enough up, we can come back and have a traditional service at another time. But I would just love to see us try this route, give it our full time and attention, and really just try to meet the needs of the people that we do have currently within our church service, and those within our community that we're not reaching because of our service isn't as inviting or what those people might need. So I leave those words with you guys to see what you think about, and hopefully we can move forward. Thank you.
Is it working? Test? Good. Okay. I think I know everybody here. Everybody knows my family's been part of this church since the 1930s. I love to see this church physically in great condition. Eric led the charge here with Jack's leadership on the Second Century campaign. We raised money. We brought the building back to great shape. It's a beautiful building, and brides want to get married here. And I can tell you as finance chairman, we're financially pretty strong. And we're going to have, I think, this year the best year we've had in a while. And last year, we paid the largest apportionments we've paid, in my opinion, in the last 10 years. So there are some good things happening here. But all of us come on Sunday. We're all the loyal ones. There aren't enough of us here. We've got to do something to reverse that trend. So I'm open to this. I think back to what would my parents say, and I hearken back to a conversation I had with my father. About a year before he died, was talking to another member of this church, Bill Haynes, and they both lived at Courage Court together. And they said, what's going to happen to Country Club Methodist Church? And they both concluded someday we would have to merge. And so I hearken back to feeling like, my folks would have approved this. They're why I'm here. I was baptized here 68 years ago, and I want this church to succeed. I want us to be proud of this church. I want us to grow again. And so for me, a lot of the questions haven't been answered. I don't know how this is all going to work, if we do it, what they would bring to the table, except I think we have to explore options to continue this church to be a growing and healthy church for this neighborhood and for Kansas City.
Okay, thank you. In just a moment, we're going to open it up to questions. We may not have answers to all your questions, but it's good to actually have those questions. But let me talk just a little bit about process. We have, when you want to list, there it is. List the entire long range. There we go. These are the people that have been working on the long range planning committee. They, along with your board, eventually we will be making a proposal. It'll have to be board approved, a proposal to bring to the entire congregation if we want to make any changes other than telling the district superintendent, just send us our next appointment. And so nothing can be changed without the approval of the congregation. We have what's called a church conference, and the district superintendent would be here to preside at that conference, and then this proposal that is made by the board will be brought for a vote. So nothing is going to happen without the whole church making a part of that decision. We'll also be coming back, I think, more than once to have some more meetings like this as we learn more information. We don't have all the information that we want yet to make this decision, and so we'll be coming back as well with some congregational meetings to hear other questions that you have and to present what we have learned so far. We already anticipate a meeting this week with Pastor Sheets, and the board chair of Good Shepherd we just found out last night, is going to come this Tuesday to meet with our board and this committee to continue this discussion. So, every church I've ever served, I want them to do better after I'm gone. And I really want you guys to be better off. And I think something needs to go forward to help us move in a direction that this church will thrive, not just survive, but thrive and grow and see new people come to Christ in this building and in these pews. So, are we ready for questions? Okay, we'll open it up to questions, and we'll do the best we can. We may not know answers, but we can write them down and use them in our exploration as well.
Yeah, I'll bring you the mic, so
That's
raise
good.
your hand and I can.
Okay, Holly has a question.
So I didn't know about this until I went to Sunday school this morning. It seems like if we merge with another church, the only option is to become contemporary. And so what I'm wondering is, like I said, I'm open. I'm open mind, but I don't feel like I would really enjoy a contemporary service, even though I have an open mind. I just don't think it's like to go to a church like this and not have a choir is odd to me. So, and no one has said that, but really that's what we're looking at. We're looking at merging and having a contemporary service where we wouldn't have the kind of choir that we have now, which is. And so what I wonder is it possible to merge with them and be the church that is merged, but maybe we're a little more traditional than the other churches, and maybe we could keep some of that stuff? Or is it like all or nothing,
Sure.
where we would have to be contemporary?
Great question, and it is on our list of questions to ask Reverend Sheets and their church. We are definitely going to ask that question. And I don't have the answer to it now, but it's a good question. Thank you.
What is Reverend Sheets' background in school?
What school did he go to? He went to Garrett in Chicago, which is the United Methodist Seminary up there. He's from St. Charles. He went to First St. Charles Church, grew up there, grew up in a very traditional church. He talks about himself having a very traditional background, but that he is moving in this new direction as well. Good. Somebody else? Yes, Eric.
I love the concept. I hate the location. I think there's a difference. It isn't just in miles, but in culture between North Kansas City and where we are. That bothers me a lot. Is there any possibility of using the concept with, say, Central?
You're talking about the church right here. It certainly could be something that we talk about. I think the issue there is they don't have any experience. We don't have, with Good Shepherd, we have a church that has experience doing campuses and have shown some growth. There was the possibility, the churches in the area that are having campuses, one of them is Woods Chapel, which is in Lee Summit. Some of you may know it's right off of 470 and Woods Chapel. And they are doing campuses. And we talked to the district superintendent about that church. And he told us that they would not be open to that at this time. The other church in our area that's doing it is Grace United Methodist Church, which is way out on 50. And they are only doing it with rural churches. And the district superintendent said that would not be a church. And then the other obvious one is Church of the Resurrection that's near us, or not near us, but and we've talked with them and have basically ruled that out. No, let me put it a different way. We've talked with them as far as we can talk to them. The next step would be for us to completely close and then call them up and say, you can have the church. And we're not willing to do that. Other question? Hold it. We got to have a microphone.
As an employee, am I allowed?
Oh, sure.
Well,
I'm an employee.
a number of you know my sister Carol Rigler, who is one of the pillars of Red Bank United Methodist Church at Red Bank United Methodist in eastern New Jersey. Carol was charged with leading a committee to institute a contemporary worship service at Red Bank. That church has been ardently traditional in the past, and the young pastors said we really need a contemporary service in order to bring people in. So they dropped quite a bit of money and, explored their resources. It has not had the effect that they had anticipated. The feedback they have received, and Carol has said, they've run across this in professional writings, is that many young people right now are seeking progressive theology in a fairly traditional, well, I shouldn't say traditional, but ritualized format. So they're wanting progressive theology in a place that takes them a step away from day-to-day culture and makes church something special. So we have talked about that recently, and I know for Red Bank, they've been very disappointed with the results of trying to institute contemporary worship in a congregation that really does not have the heart for that. No, because they kept the traditional service, and that's where people go. They have two services. So they've not lost their membership base. They simply haven't gained the membership for which they'd hoped.
Carol had a question.
Somebody was first.
I just had a question on the timing. You had mentioned February 15th. We would have to decide whether or not we wanted a pastor. Am I correct in that?
Well, I'm not sure on the exact timing on there. The district superintendent, I'm keeping the district superintendent informed on every step we're taking. And he told me yesterday that he does not want the congregation to feel rushed into making a decision, but to know they are going to be starting appointment making in February and definitely in March. And so if we are not going to become a campus, the sooner we get in with him, the sooner we'll have a larger pool of pastors that they'll look at to come here. But he doesn't want us to feel like we're being rushed into making a decision.
And if we became a campus ministry, then would the district or would the bishop still appoint our pastor, or
Yes.
would
Oh, yeah. It
Reverend
would-
Sheets?
No, right. Yeah, no, we would remain a United Methodist Church, and as a United Methodist Church, we're appointed a pastor by the bishop. The bishop would take the recommendation of Mark Sheets.
Okay.
The recommendation of Mark Sheets.
Take it or consider it?
Well, he's received the appointments of the other two campuses that he chose.
A statement and a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. This is about, as old as I am, and I'm 79, Gary's 80, we don't have to be so stolid and so wrapped up in ourselves. So, do you think that we could recommend to whomever we are appointed that we are desiring to be extremely creative, because that's what's calling my heart?
I just heard about this last week, but to me, the proof is kind of in the pudding that this would be the fourth church that brought more people to Christ. And that's what it's all about, bringing, not bringing disciples. I mean, if we could have more people who believe in Jesus, just think what that would do. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a service that we're especially, I mean, I'm a traditionalist too, that we're not exactly as comfortable with or whatever, but if other people can accept the faith and become disciples, to me, and that's what that Good Shepherd has done.
Okay.
My in-laws went to a church in Lee's Summit for over 75 years, and It went from being very traditional to being very contemporary. It's now called the Summit. It's in a gym that they built that has a cross on it. Doesn't say United Methodist. It is rock and roll church. They have a rock and roll minister, and I'll bet there are 2,500 people there every single Sunday. My in-laws came to think it was awesome because they loved seeing all the people, they loved the energy, and they loved just the whole idea. It did not happen overnight. It's not like one day they had this church and the next Sunday they came and it was rock and roll. It takes a little time to get to that. And I assume our leadership has lots of other questions that I've seen a list of that are good questions that'll get answered. But I don't think we need to worry about it being that frightful all at once.
Is it possible to have the two go ahead with a new contemporary, like with the Good Shepherd, and then have a tiny little traditional service like we used to have, a tiny little traditional contemporary service when the Smiths were here in the 70s, and, you know, that was our second service. So is it possible to move into the new thing, be the new thing for quite a while, and then have a sub-traditional?
We're asking that very question. Yeah, I think that's worth finding out. It's getting close to 12:30.
I just wanted to make a comment, too, that I am also very, very, very excited that we are actually maybe taking this problem by the throat and addressing it, finally. The thing that concerns me is exactly what Anne Marie was saying, but also what I heard Jamie Kapke saying and what I heard Tara Snyder saying, and maybe the Montgomerys, haven't talked to them. I want so much to create such a compelling environment, Christian spiritual environment, that our young families will feel comfortable inviting their friends in whatever radius, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever. But I've heard so many of them saying, you know, our friends are just kind of put off. They just are not comfortable. They think this is high church. And so I just want to create whatever it is that we need to create that will allow our young families to bring their friends, develop their spirituality, successfully feed that spirituality. Whatever it is, I just want us to find it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be black or white.
Okay. After Ken, I think we'll close, but I know that Blythe and I will stick around, and maybe Ted, for a reasonable amount of time to answer any questions. No, Ted's not going to stay, huh? Okay. Blythe and I will stay.
Talk to me.
No. But we want to watch the game as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have a statement and a question, too. The statement is just, you know, we are the resources of the church. There are a few people here that are as well. But what I have worried about for years is we're stretching our resources so tight. And this sounds like an opportunity to have additional resources come in. I know that we're still going to have responsibilities.
Yes, we would.
We'll follow the pastoral leadership of Mark Sheets, but at least we have some additional resources to bear. And I just worry about stretching ourselves, you know, too tightly in that regard. Then the question is, would you maybe clarify a little bit more? It seems like if we don't go with, you know, this merger and have the benefit of Mark Sheets' choice of a pastor for us, what we're likely to get, if we just continue down the path that we're on.
Well, anything I say is complete conjecture. Do you understand that? And I do not know the thinking of our bishop or our district I know some of our district superintendent, but I can tell you a couple things that the district superintendent has said to us. One thing he said is that he would recommend that we drop our salary, right? That's what he said. This was a meeting I was not a part of.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm
he had
going
to step out.
I'm going to confirm this,
That's
although he
correct.
has told me that as well, which means they would probably be looking at bringing someone here with little or no experience, okay? And that can be the greatest person you could ever find, or it could be someone who doesn't have any experience and be struggling. Or the other end would probably be someone like myself who was near retirement. I would be, because of those statistics, and because, you've had trouble paying 100% apportionments, they're not going to look at this as a church to send one of their, stars. I put it in parentheses. One of their stars, one of their up-and-coming pastors who they want to groom to be, to lead some big church. Now, that's not to say you won't get someone that you would love and would be great, would be fantastic, but I think the chances of getting someone who really has a little bit more experience and is more in the mold of what Mark Sheets is going in is to move towards becoming a campus ministry. Does that help? Again, we don't know for sure any of that, but that's just my conjecture. Not at this time. He has not said that, which he did not say that at the meeting.
No.
So I have been told, but obviously it's not always that way, and there is gray area, but I have been told you have to have 100 in attendance to qualify for a full-time pastor. That's what I've been told. Obviously, that's not 100% true, but you start, going down that way, if you continue to decline, that is certainly a possibility that you won't get a full-time pastor.
Before we part, one thing that we've been encouraged to do is to kind of determine what our non-negotiables are. And I'd encourage each of you to think about, obviously we can't accommodate everyone's non-negotiable, but I think we can, I'd like to hear, as you all go out and think and reflect on what's the most important thing about church for you. We need to hear back from you about that, and I'm sure you can email Keith, you can leave it in the offering plate, you can get it, the committee can, you can tell anyone. But we want to know what the non-negotiable is, because we do think we have some ability to say to a Good Shepherd, we'll make any change but this. And we don't know what this is. We haven't identified what this is. We have a few thises on our list from internal conversations, but we don't know what that is. And I think everyone should put some thought into that, is what is the one thing about church that you can't see change? That's all I had.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for sticking around. Also know that anytime you go through change or transition, there's always loss. If we go to a contemporary, there's going to be a loss of, the choir and all those traditional things that we love. And whenever there's loss, there's grieving. It's sad. And it will be emotional. And that's okay. Be emotional with each other if we go through this change. And we'll work our way through it. Let's have a prayer. Oh God, continue to guide us. We seek to know your will. We want to know your way to best bring more disciples of Jesus Christ and the transformation of this world. Be with those on the board and the long-range committee. and those at Good Shepherd who are talking about this, with our district superintendent, with our bishop. We seek your guidance. In your name we pray. Amen.